President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Today, the chamber continues to hear the statement of harm and suffering of civil party Sim Chan Thay, and after it's concluded, we continue to hear another civil party, that is through TCCP 1014, and if possible we will hear another civil party that is through TCCP 259. Graphier, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals to today's proceedings. Graphier, Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present, except Aung San Suu Kyi, the International Defense Council for Kyrgyzstan Pound, who is absent for personal reasons from today through the 7th March 2016, and Victor Copper, the Council for Nunji, is absent without reasons, and Mr. Nunji is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his rights to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. Civil party who is still continue her statement of harm and suffering, that is Madame Sim Chan Thay, is present in the courtroom, and then we also have another civil party, that is to CCP 1014. We also have a reserve civil party, that is to TCCP 259. During the proceedings to hear the statements of harm and suffering, we have Madame Chai Maridat, the TPL staff, who will sit next to the civil party to lend her a support, and she is also present in the courtroom. Thank you. President, thank you. The chamber now decides on the request by Nuon Chea. The chamber has received a waiver from Nuon Chea, dated 1st March 2016, which states that due to his health, headache, back pain, he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his rights to participate in and be present at the 1st March 2016 hearing. Having seen the medical report of Nuon Chea by the duty doctor for the accused at the ECCC, dated 1st March 2016, which notes that Nuon Chea today has back pain and feel dizzy when he sits for long, and recommends that the chamber grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the chamber grants Nuon Chea his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via audio-visual means. The chamber instructs the AV unit personnel to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that Nuon Chea can follow. This applies to the whole day. Madame Sim Chan Thay, the chamber receives information that you need to visit the bathroom rather frequently, and please don't hesitate to do so. If you need to visit the bathroom, just rest your hand, then we take note of that, and you can go at any time during your statement. Now the chamber hands the floor to the lead co-lawyers to continue putting further questions to the civil party. You may proceed.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Madam Sulpati. Yesterday, you talked of the rape of two young girls of Vietnamese origin witnessed by your father. Can you tell us a bit more about that event, about the identity of the two young girls and the impact of that event on you?
President Council Kong Sam On, you have the floor. Kong Sam On, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to object to this question. This is not, the question is about the fact which is not related to the acts that cause harm and suffering to this civil party. It is about a general fact, and in particular this civil party did not see or know the fact directly, and it is a second or third hand information only.
Mr. President, if you would allow me, I find it particularly relevant to ask this question and to find out to what extent the civil party was affected by this information, to the extent that she herself was a young girl of Vietnamese origin at the time. So my question is to find out whether that event had a personal impact on the civil party, which appears to be the very purpose of these hearings. May I therefore request you to allow this civil party to explain the impact of that event on her?
President, the objection by Council Kong Sam On is overruled. And Madam Civil Party, please respond to the question by the international legal lawyer. Civil Party, please repeat your question so that I can remember it.
Bien sûr.
Of course, yesterday you talked of two young girls of Vietnamese origin in your village who were raped. I would like to know whether you can tell us a little more about that incident and the impact and the effect that that incident had on you at the time.
Yes, I can do that. The two victims had their mother as Vietnamese, and they were my neighbors, and they also carried dirt in my unit. I did not know when they were arrested. I only knew that they disappeared from the workplace, and then I quietly asked other workers about their disappearance, about Saamdi and Srai Tu, that is their names, and then I was told that they were taken away and killed. And when I returned home that night, my father whispered to me that the family members of Bun Thon were taken away and killed, and that he was so afraid of that. He was so afraid that his children, that is us, would be raped before we were killed. I was so terrified upon hearing that from my father, and I was afraid that one day my turn would come, that I would be taken away, because I was half Vietnamese blood. And that thought was with me all the time, and when I returned to work, I did not dare to look at the face of my unit chief, and I tried to avoid the unit chief wherever I could, and I started to work so hard. Sometimes I had to run to carry dirt. I was afraid that I was taken away and killed. Every day I was so afraid, and I tried to work hard in the morning, and in the afternoons the fear came back to me. And that remained with me until the date of the suicide of my father, as I testified yesterday. The fear remained with me until the day of the liberation. And that is the truth. I heard about that, and of course I was half blood, and that instilled fear in me. I did not know when they would come for me. When I saw the corporate chief or the unit chief, I felt terrified, and I just forced myself to work hard. Sometimes two workers had to carry a basket of dirt, and I had to do it myself because I was afraid that I would be taken away. And other people, other workers did not even dare talk to me because they knew that I was half blood Vietnamese, and if they talked to me, maybe they would be implicated. They fear that they were implicated with me and they would be killed. So I had to work alone by myself. And of course, every time I recall it, the fear comes back to me.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Madam Silapati. I have one last question for you. Yesterday, you talked about the loss of two of your brothers, Champa and Chantan. Can you tell us a little bit more regarding what happened to your two brothers and what you felt, how you felt after you heard of their disappearance?
I'd like to first talk about my other brother Chanta, who was a second lieutenant of the Tribunal regime, and I spoke rather at length about him yesterday. He was arrested in Prasak commune and in Sala Bongrian or Payap village in Swai Chrum district. He was tied and he was accused of cutting a cherry tree, and he didn't know how to plow the field because he was a soldier. So he didn't know how to plow the field, and by accident it wounded a cow's leg, and he was accused of destroying Onka's property. Then they arrested him, they walked him behind a bicycle while whipping him. And at that afternoon, actually, I was watering the rice field, and I saw a person being walked behind a bicycle, and I did not know who it was. But then I could identify that he was my other brother, and he was taken to the district office. And I felt so pity for him. When I returned home, I did not dare to talk about this to my mother and my father. My mother had her illness, and I didn't want to compound it by telling this sad story to her. They beat him up since he was in Prasad while he was walked behind a bicycle, and the distance from Prasad to the district office was about 10 kilometers. There was blood everywhere on his body, and I could hardly identify him. However, when I heard his voice, I knew that he's my other brother, so I ran to see what happened. And when I saw him, I felt so pity. And when he saw me, he told me that he asked me to tell our parents that he was tied up and being taken away. And that fear remains with me even at present time. When people catch a thief, I just feel so terrified. And the image of my brother being arrested vividly replays in my mind. My other brother was a policeman. He was also a second lieutenant. And he had a numbed illness. During the rainy season, he could not work in the rice field that is in the water because of this numbness disease, illness, and he asked for permission to work in the dry ground. And while I was working in the I overheard the Khmerus talk about my other brother, that he always had this numbness illness, so it would not wise to take him out. They spoke also about the wheel of history, and if anyone interrupts the wheel of the history, that person's arm or leg would be broken. I felt so terrified when I heard that in the kitchen. And then I walked to my father, and the kitchen hall was about 200 to 300 meters from the house. And I spoke to my father and my other brother that he should work hard, otherwise he would be in trouble, because I overheard the Khmerus spoke about his condition, about his numbness, illness, and that they would not lose anything if he was taken or disposed of. And my other brother was trembling upon hearing that. He hugged my parents and asked them to help him, and he said that he didn't pretend, but it was his illness. So we all wept together. We didn't dare to cry out loud. We wept quietly. We didn't dare to cry out loud, as we were afraid that people would hear us. That was the terrible thing that happened to my family, and I believe the same thing happened to many other families during the regime. I want the Cambodian people and the international community to understand the hardship and the terrible situations that we experienced during the Pol Pot regime. My brother tries to endure the rainy season, and then during the harvest season in 1977, that is toward the later part of the year, I harvested rice, and usually my brother would also come to the field, but that day he didn't turn up, and I asked where he was. Nobody told me, and then I asked the unit chief. But then I was stopped from asking him, and that I should go home and ask my parents about the disappearance of my other brother. And I suspected that something went wrong with my other brother. And people knew about his disappearance, and he became so quiet, and they didn't dare to say anything. In that evening, when I returned, I saw my mother weeping together with my father. And then I asked my father what happened, and also asked my mother whether her illness actually relapsed. And then I asked about my brother, and my mother wept and said that he was asked to go and carry stuff for the militia. And during the time when people spoke about a person being sent to carry stuff for the militia, it means the person was taken away and killed. My mother wept and said that your brother would not return. And my father said before he left, he actually took off his new clothes and only wore old clothes when he went. It was there were some patches on the old cloth, and also there was a piece of cloth on the shirt to notify that he was in a mourning stage for his wife. There were 4 men who came to take my brother away and killed. Amongst the 4, there was one man who had what we call the holy care to identify that he had some magic with him. And when they returned, they spoke about my other brother, and people overheard them speaking about my other brother, that he passed out before he was even killed. They actually brought the knife that killed my brother, and it was stained with blood, and they actually cleansed that knife in the kitchen. They killed my other brother, and they spoke about it. My mother was so shocked for the loss of my elder brother, and it happened repeatedly in 1977. First, the wife of my other brother delivered the baby, and 3 days after she delivered the baby, she died from infection. And not long after, my other brother was killed. Later on, my father committed suicide, and later on, my another other brother was taken away and killed. And for that, my mother didn't get out of the house. She remained in the house for 3 months. And sometimes we brought food to her, and actually she was in a mood of committing suicide herself for the loss of her husband and her children. Even after the liberation, sometimes I observed that she was in a lost state of mind, that she was by herself without knowing what she was doing. And that remained with her until the day she died from heart disease. Every time I speak about this, it vividly plays in my mind, and without knowing, my tear drops.
Thank you, Madam Civil Party. Mr. President, we have no further questions to put to the Civil Party. We are done.
President, thank you. The floor is now given to the co-prosecutors to put questions to the civil party, if any. You may now proceed. Co-prosecutor, good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, everyone in and around the courtroom. Good morning, Madam Civil Party. My name is Seng Liang, the National Deputy Co-Prosecutor of the ECCCC. Today I have a few questions and I need your clarification for the court. My first question is that during the reign of Khmer Rouge, where were you living? Answer, I was living in Rusay Prey village, Chamlong commune, Rusay Prey district, Svay Rieng province. Question. What nationality did your parents hold? Answer. My mother was pure Khmer, and my grandparents were ethnically Vietnamese, but they resided in Cambodia. So my father was ethnically Vietnamese as well. However, later on, he used other person's surname, and he was employed as a civil servant in the country. Co-prosecutor, you have made mention that your father was ethnically Vietnamese and your mother was pure Khmer. So for you, you was half-blooded Vietnamese. Is that correct? Answer, yes, that is correct. Question. Could your siblings speak Vietnamese beside your parents? Who could? Answer. In fact, only my father could speak Vietnamese and the rest of the family could not speak it. Question. How many siblings did you have and what were their names? Answer. I had 8 siblings. My first sibling is Chan Thon. My second sibling is Churuk Chan Tha, and the third Churuk Chan Thida. Fourth Churuk Chan TV. My 5 siblings. The number 5 is me. I am the 5th in the family, and my name is Sieng Chan Thai. My younger sibling is Thương Yat Ni. My 7th sibling is Churuk Chan Thi, and the last one is Han Muni. Co-prosecutor, thank you, Madam Civil Party. Did villagers in your village know that your family was Vietnamese ethnically?
Jack.
Answer. Everyone knew. because my father had a fair complexion and he looked really like a Vietnamese. So villagers were aware that my father was Vietnamese. Question. Yesterday you stated that, if I am not mistaken, there were 3 other Vietnamese family in your village, and together with your family, altogether there were 4 Vietnamese family. So is that correct, what I summarized? Answer. In fact, there were only 3 Vietnamese family, including mine. Co-prosecutor. Thank you, Madam Civil Party, for your clarification. During Pol Pot regime, did you know that Khmer Rouge were searching out the families who had linked to Vietnamese origin? Answer. They did not do anything to search for Vietnamese, since the Khmer Rouge had known in advance that which family was half-blooded. My father, although he was ethnically Vietnamese, could speak Khmer clearly, since he was residing in the country for so long. Question. Beside your father, who was ethnically Vietnamese, were your siblings considered Vietnamese children? Answer. Everyone said that the children were half-blooded Vietnamese. Co-prosecutor. Thank you. Yesterday and also today, yesterday you stated that old people or base people look down on your family members, since your family members were ethnically or half-blooded Vietnamese. And one time, you stated that the co-workers did not talk to you because you were told that they were afraid that they would be taken away by speaking to you, the half-blooded Vietnamese child. Is that correct, what I summarized? Answer. Yes, that is correct. Question. So, beside that, did Khmer Rouge treat your family members differently from Khmer families? For instance, was there any discrimination against you in relation to food ration? Answer. We had the same food as the villagers. So we received the same amount of rice and porridge that other villagers received. Question. Are you sure that you received the same food ration as others? Answer. I am sure, since I was working, I was in the kitchen, so we received a bowl of meal. But I cannot say whether others had sufficient food or could eat their fill. And sometimes I did not eat up the rice from my bowl, so I share the rice or meal with my father and my siblings. And on some occasion, my father wept when he noticed that I shared food with him or with the siblings, and he always asked me whether I had my field. I ate my field, and I talked to him that I was full. In a document, in a document, English EON 01142660 and French EON 01206358. Khmer EON is at 00492094. You stated that your siblings were half-blooded Vietnamese, so there was a discrimination against all of us since we did not receive the same food ration. We received only one ladle of food or meal, but others received 3 ladles of food or meal. And we were told not to protest against the unequal food ration, and we were told that we would have been taken away and killed if we had to complain. And during the time, we endured hard labor until the end of the regime. So what do you have to say about the statement that you included in your statement or in your document? So which version of account you stand by? Answer. At the beginning, that kind of condition happened, but later on, it was better for all of us. At the beginning, we received a very minimal amount of rice or porridge to eat. However, later on, when the agricultural products was good, when the harvest was good, the food ration was better. Co-prosecutor, thank you, Madam Civil Party, for your reply. During the Khmer Rouge, when did the treatment of Vietnamese people became worse? Answer. To my recollection, it was the time when the offensive by the Vietnamese troops happened. At that time, the treatment of Vietnamese people or half-blooded Vietnamese family became worse. At that time, I was so young, so this is what I can tell you from my recollection. Co-prosecutor, do you know the reason that such treatment became worse after the attack by the Vietnamese? Answer. It is my understanding that it was because of the offensive by the Vietnamese troops, and they accused us that having Khmer body and Vietnamese mind. So this is the word or accusation that they used at the time against all of us. Co-prosecutor, thank you. Yesterday I heard you say that chief of cooperative always said that your father was pure Vietnamese, and you also made mention that your father was so terrified at the time. So do you know what your father did at the time after hearing that chief of cooperative mentioning that he was pure the Vietnamese? Answer. He was so terrified after hearing that he did not dare to look straight at that person's face, and when he returned back home, he could not even eat the meal, and he suspected that there would be one day he would be taken away. And from that time onward, he discussed with my mother that he wanted to do anything for the sake of our lives. He had 6 siblings, and he believed that after the suicide committed by him, the children would survive. So it is now it is true that we survived the regime, and this is the truth. I am not telling lies. I am not a storyteller. It is the facts that I experienced. My father committed a suicide for the sake of our lives, so 6 of us survived the regime because of his good deeds and because of his suicide. Co-prosecutor, you have just stated that 2 other Vietnamese families had also been taken away and killed. So how many people were there in those 2 families altogether? Answer. I can recall. My father did not know the family of Ton. That person, Ton, held the rank of lieutenant colonel, major rather, and Saon's family had been taken away and killed as well. And later on, I heard that 10 days after On had been taken away and killed, the wife of On was also taken away and killed. Question. So there were 6 members in the first family and 3 members in the second families from what I heard. Is that correct? Answer. Ton, who held the rank of major, had 6 members in the family, and another family had 2 children, 1 son and 1 daughter. Thank you, Madam Civil Party. Now I am asking about you stated that you had 2 brothers, Chiruk Janthon and Chiruk Jantha. Where did they live in Lono regime? Answer. My first elder brother, Chiruk Janthon, was a former police in Phnom Penh, and my second brother, Jantha, was a soldier in Svai Rieng. I did not know why he boarded the plane and arrived in Phnom Penh. And after the 17th April 1975, he went to Basak to live with his wife at a Sala Rien commune. Co-prosecutor. Thank you, Madam Civil Party. You just stated that Janthon was a former police and Jantha was a soldier. After their return to your native village in 1975, did the Khmer Rouge try to identify that their background was soldiers and police? Answer. At that time, they collected a biography, and we told Khmer Rouge that they had been former police and soldier. And 1 month later, but I cannot recall it exactly, Janton had been asked to go and join education session, and for Janta he went to reside with his wife in Basa. Co-prosecutor. Thank you, Madam Civil Party. I would like to backtrack a little bit since I have forgotten one question to put to you. You stated that 2 other Vietnamese families had also been killed, but you did not learn this by yourself, but from others. Is that correct? Answer. That is true. Every time people had been taken away and killed, villagers would whisper one to another. They did not speak loudly about the taken away of those people, but the taking away of those people, usually they whispered or they talked to one another quietly. Co-prosecutor. Thank you, Madam Civil Party. From that time, meaning that after the collapse of the Khmer Rouge, did you hear any news of the whereabouts of those Vietnamese family, or have you ever met them anywhere in the country after the fall of the Khmer Rouge regime? Answer. So how could I have chance to see them after that time, since those families had been taken away and killed? Question. During the Khmer Rouge, was there any time that meetings were held in the village to discuss about the Vietnamese people? Answer. Cooperative chief was well aware that which families had links to Vietnamese origin. For my family, the chief of the cooperative knew very well that my grandparents were ethnically Vietnamese. Co-prosecutor, thank you. Now I want to ask about your elder brother. Your eldest sister, Tida, how old was she in Khmer Rouge time? Answer. She was about 20 years old or more than that. She was in the early 21 or 22 in that time. So early 20. And she was born in the year of a monkey. And when did she get married? Answer. To my recollection, she got married in 1978 after my father had passed away and my elder brothers had died. At that time, she was forced to get married. Co-prosecutor, you stated that your elder sister was forced. So she did not get married voluntarily. Is that correct? Answer. She was forced. The man proposed the marriage to her, but she did not love that person, and since she was afraid that she would be taken away and killed, she decided to get married with that man. Question. Did you participate in the wedding ceremony of your elder sister at that time? Answer. Yes, I did. before the wedding ceremony, I decided not to join since I hated that wedding, and my mother backed me to attend the wedding since she was afraid that I would be taken away and killed. And the wedding took place in Angrun Pagoda. Question: during the wedding ceremony, did you notice the presence of Khmer Rouge cadres in that wedding? Answer: yes, they were there, but I did not recognize them and I did not know them. I did not know whether they were chiefs of a cooperative or any units. And my elder sister was asked to stand up and voice the commitment. She was asked to stand up and hold hands together with the groom, and after that they had to voice the commitment. Cadres of Khmer Rouge attended the wedding, but I do not know who they were. Co-prosecutor, I have another question, perhaps it is the last one. I want to know about your feeling. You stated that you did not like the wedding and you did not want to attend the wedding ceremony. So what made you hate that wedding ceremony? Answer: I did not like that kind of wedding. It was not a solemn declaration of a wedding. It was so quiet. And I was asked to attend the meeting, and after the meeting I came back home and it rice with salt. I would like to quote the 109/5.1.2 English Yan Zone 00621378, French 01020493, English 00621381. Actually 00621380 through 81. You stated that my elder sister Tida was about 21 years old, was forced to get married in 1978. There were 4 couples in the wedding, including my sister and the groom. And the wedding was held in Ang Rum, Kampong Chamlong, Svai Chrum, and the wedding ceremony was held at around 10 a.m. I feel not good because my sister was forced to get married with the man whom she did not love. That kind of wedding affected my feeling, and I was thinking at the time that it would be my time or one day in that marriage, because at the time I was about 18 years old. So did this refresh your memory? Answer: I was thinking at that time that one day I would be forced to get married with a person whom I did not like, and I would have the same fate as my sister had. The wedding was held in Angrun village. Co-prosecutor: Mr. President, I am done. Now I am handing over the floor back to the chamber. President, the floor is now given to the defense team for the accused, starting first by the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia. You may now proceed with your questions. Lawyer for the accused. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, everyone in and around the courtroom. My name is Liv Savannah. I am the National Co-Counsel for Nguyen Chia. I have several questions to ask you, Madam Civil Party. First, it is about your two elder siblings. Yesterday at around 3 p.m. 37 minutes, you stated that after 15 days or 20 days following the evacuation, I met my elder siblings. They were former police and soldier. 15 days later, my elder siblings had been taken away and had been taken away to join education session, and after 15 days or 1 month, he came back to the village. And a while ago, you stated that Khmer Rouge collected the biography about your brothers. So now my question is that I want to know whether two of your elder siblings had been taken away for education, or only one of your brothers had been taken away for education session.
Answer: at the Risai Prey village, my other brother Janton was taken away for education. As for Janta, he only stayed there for a short time, then he went to Basa to live with his wife. Question: and your brother Janta, did you know why he was not sent for education? Answer: because he went to live at his wife's place, so he was separate from us. Question: between your two brothers, Janta and Janton, who was taken away and killed first? Answer: it was my other brother Janton who was taken away and killed, and I learned of his death from people who witnessed it. And later I was also told that Janta was killed at the place where he was detained. Question: regarding Janton, do you know which year he was killed? Answer: from my recollection, it was during the harvest season in 1977. He was killed at Tul Snoon, to the east of Chey Pagoda. Question: a while ago you testified that your brother Janton was taken away and killed, as you overheard that he was accused of being lazy to work as a result of his illness. What about your brother Janta? What was the reason he was taken away and killed? And regarding my brother Janton, who was spoken about, and that happened during the rainy season, and later on he was taken during the dry season in late 77. As for Janta, he lived in the village and commune of his wife. He actually cut some trees to make the trellis for plant and that's all I knew. Question. So the killing of your two brothers did not have anything to do with their former profession. That is, one was a policeman and one was a soldier of the Tribunal regime. Am I correct?
ចាគឺតកតង
Of course, it is related because they knew that my brother was a policeman and that my other brother was a soldier. And if someone made a mistake, then they would combine that with their previous occupation. People who were taken away and killed with Janton were all former soldiers. Question. As I reminded you just then, you said your brother Janton, after the statistic was drawn, and he was sent for re-education, and then he was sent back, and that happened 6 months after. And only in 1977 he was taken away and killed. But now you claim that he was killed because during the transplanting season he was accused of being lazy. Second, for your brother Chanta, you claims that he made a mistake, that he cut the cherry tree, and when he plowed the field he wounded the leg of a cow. So please clarify through the chamber that your brother was arrested because of these two mistakes, that is cutting cherry tree and wounded a cow while he plows the field. Or was it because of his former occupation as a policeman or a soldier? President, National Lead Co-Lawyer for Civil Party, you have the floor. Mr. President, the question is repetitive, and a summary of the testimony of this Civil Party is not thorough or not complete. The Civil Party said her brothers were taken away to killed because of the combination, that is, they were former policemen and a soldier, in addition to the mistakes that they were alleged of committing. Defense Counsel, Mr. President, I actually read out an excerpt of yesterday's transcript, as he testified that her brother was taken for re-education and allowed to return home after. And when I asked for the reason of her brother's arrest, she said it's because he was accused of cutting a cherry tree and of wounding a cow's leg while he plowed the field. And that's why I asked that the arrest had nothing to do with their former profession or occupation as a former policeman or Tribunal soldier. President, the Civil Party already testifies that the two things were interconnected. That is, their former occupation as a former Tribunal soldier or policeman, as well as the alleged mistakes that they made. That's why they were arrested and killed. So the Civil Party already replied to your question, Counsel. Please move on. Counsel, thank you, Mr. President. So, Madam Civil Party, you said they were connected. Can you tell the Chamber that their backgrounds were already learned by the Khmer Rouge after the evacuation in 1975 rather, and then they were killed in 1977? How could you say that these two things were connected? That is, their former profession and the mistakes they made later on? Answer, allow me to respond. regarding their former professions and the mistakes that they made. In the village, they selected those who had the former professions with the former regime and the mistakes that they made. Those people were selected, taken away and killed. Question: how did you know that those people were selected? Answer: there were many former soldiers and teachers in the area, but they only singled out some of them, arrested them and taken away and killed. Not everyone was taken away and killed. That's why I concluded my other brother and the other 3 men were taken away on that day. There were many former Lunar soldiers in the village. Questioned: so from your observation, there were many former soldiers living in your village. Were they the former soldiers of which particular regime? Can you clarify that? Answer: to my knowledge, they were former Lunar soldiers. I was born in the Lunar regime and I knew about them being the Lunar soldiers. Questioned: regarding the cadres in the leadership at your village and cooperative, did they know that those people were former Lunar soldiers? Answer: they did, because they already drew up the statistics and the list, and however they were active and then they were not selected. For my elder brother, he was accused of being lazy to work, and because of his former profession, that's why he was singled out. Question: you said there were many former Lunar soldiers who were not taken away, and did they survive after the liberation in 1979? Answer: there were many of them. However, I do not know where they are now. Maybe they had left to live in other areas to earn their living. I only knew their faces because they were old people and I was rather young. I kept working hard, although I saw them in the village. President, thank you, Council. It is now convenient time for us to have a short break. We take a break now and resume at 10:30 to continue our proceedings. Court officer, please assist the civil party at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties, and invite her as well as the TPO staff back into the courtroom at 10:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ